Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be unlocking some crucial knowledge
Ooh, I like that.
in the world of cybersecurity.
Sounds good.
You've probably heard these terms, authentication and authorization,
Well, at the time.
tossed around, but are they really the same thing?
Definitely not. And yeah, you're right. People do mix them up all the time.
Yeah.
But having a clear understanding of each is crucial for building, really strong security systems.
Exactly. That's why we've got a stack of sources here.
Nice.
A great article from Delinea,
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
plus some videos featuring Bert Blevins.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, a real cybersecurity whiz.
Love his stuff.
So we're going to break this down so that by the end, you'll be able to spot the difference between authentication and authorization in a snap
Love it.
and see how crucial they are for keeping your data safe.
The most important thing.
So first up, authentication, often shortened to Authn.
Authn.
What's the deal with Authn?
So Authn is all about verifying someone's identity, essentially confirming who are you.
Right,
Think of it like a security guard checking your ID card
right.
before you can enter a building.
Yeah.
They need to make sure you're supposed to be there.
Okay, that's a helpful image. The Delinea article uses that same analogy,
Oh, does it?
and it really clicks.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So how does that play out in the digital world?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What are some ways we actually verify identity online?
There are a bunch of methods.
Okay.
And they all have their pros and cons.
Sure.
We've got the classic passwords, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But biometrics are becoming increasingly popular.
Right.
Things like fingerprint scanning on your phone
Right.
or facial recognition.
And then there's multi-factor authentication,
Oh, yeah, MFA.
or MFA.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's everywhere these days.
It is.
And for good reason, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Huh.
MFA adds that extra layer of security by requiring multiple credentials
Okay.
to verify your identity. So it's not just your password.
Mhm.
You might also need a code sent to your phone
Okay.
or a fingerprint scan.
Yeah.
You know those authenticator apps that generate those time-based codes?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's a type of MFA called OTP.
Mm-hmm.
And Bert Blevins actually has a great YouTube video explaining it,
Oh, I've seen those.
step by step.
They can seem a little intimidating at first,
I know what you mean.
but once you get the hang of it,
Yeah,
it really is a much safer way to log in,
absolutely.
especially with all the phishing scams going around.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If someone steals your password, they still can't access your account
Right.
without that second factor,
Okay.
whether it's a code from your Authenticator app
Yeah. Yeah.
or a biometric scan.
So MFA is like having a security guard
Exactly.
and a high-tech lock on that door,
Right.
making it way harder for unauthorized people to get in.
It's all about making it as difficult as possible for attackers
Yeah.
to impersonate you.
Got it. So, we verified who we are.
Right.
We're in the building.
We're in.
But that doesn't mean we have free reign over everything inside.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's where authorization comes in.
You nailed it.
Okay.
Authorization, or Auth-Z,
Right.
kicks in after authentication.
Gotcha.
Now that we know who you are,
Uh-huh.
Auth-Z determines what you're allowed to do
Okay.
within the system.
Makes sense.
It answers the question, what can you access or change?
So, back to our building analogy.
Okay, yeah.
Even though I'm allowed inside,
hmm
my ID card might only give me access to certain floors or rooms,
Right,
depending on my role in the company.
perfect example.
Yeah.
It's the same concept in the digital world.
Okay.
Once you're authenticated,
Yeah.
authorization dictates what resources you can access,
Okay.
what actions you can perform,
Got it.
and what information you can view.
Okay. So, it's all about setting those digital boundaries.
Exactly.
But how does that actually work?
Good question.
I've heard terms like RBAC and ACLs thrown around.
Yeah.
Are those the mechanisms that control all of this?
Those are some of the big players.
Okay.
RBAC stands for Role-Based Access Control.
Okay.
And it's exactly what it sounds like.
All right.
Instead of granting access to individuals,
Mm-hmm.
permissions are assigned to roles like marketing manager or system administrator.
Gotcha.
Think of it like job titles dictating what you can and cannot do.
Makes sense. So a marketing manager
Yeah.
might have access to marketing materials,
Mm-hmm.
but wouldn't be able to view sensitive financial data.
That's the idea.
Okay.
It simplifies things by grouping users
Right.
with similar permissions,
Right. Yeah.
making it easier to manage access at scale.
Okay.
And then we have ACLs, or access control lists.
Okay.
These are more granular and specific.
Right.
Imagine a spreadsheet that lists exactly which users,
Okay.
or even which software program,
Oh, wow.
are allowed to access certain files or folders, and what actions they can perform.
So it's like a super detailed security log,
Exactly.
keeping track of who can do what with each digital asset.
Precisely.
Okay.
ACLs give you that fine-grained control over access permissions,
Yeah.
and they're often used in conjunction with RBAC to create a layered security approach.
Got it. It's all starting to come together.
I'm glad to hear it.
So we've got authsend confirming who are you,
Right.
and then authz stepping in to say, okay, now that we know who you are, here's what you can do.
Nailed it.
And there's another mechanism
There is.
called PBAC, or Policy-Based Access Control,
Yeah, PBAC.
which uses policies to make access decisions.
Right.
But we'll dig into that a bit later.
We will.
Perfect. So we've laid the groundwork
I think so.
for understanding these two crucial security
That
concepts,
was very important.
authn and authz.
Authn and authz.
But why are they both so important?
That is the question.
What happens if one is neglected?
Ooh, good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And we'll explore that in detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll uncover the potential risks of neglecting either authentication or authorization,
Right.
and see how they work together to create a truly secure environment.
Okay, looking forward to it. Stay tuned.
All right, we're back.
Back for more.
So we've established that authentication and authorization are both
Essential.
essential for cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
That's a great question.
Are there real-world situations where
Uh-huh.
neglecting one or the other could lead to problems?
Absolutely. Imagine this.
Okay.
You have a super secure system
Okay.
with rock-solid authentication.
Right.
You've got MFA in place, biometrics,
okay.
the whole 9 yards.
Gotcha.
But then on the authorization side,
Yeah.
things are a bit lax.
Okay.
You haven't clearly defined
Uh-huh.
roles and permissions.
Right.
So once someone is in,
Yeah.
they essentially have access to everything. Yikes. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It's not good.
It's like having Fort Knox with the doors wide open.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You might successfully verify someone's identity,
right.
but then they could end up seeing or
Yeah.
even changing
Yeah.
sensitive information they shouldn't have access to.
So even with the best authentication, if authorization isn't properly set up,
Right.
it's like giving everyone a master key
Yeah.
to the entire building, even if they only need access to one room.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
On the flip side,
Okay.
you could have incredibly tight authorization
Okay.
with very specific rules about who can access what.
Mm-hmm.
But if your authentication is weak,
Yeah.
let's say you're relying on easily guessable passwords,
Right.
then unauthorized users could slip through the cracks.
Okay, so it's like having a high security vault
Right.
with a flimsy lock.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't matter how well you've organized everything inside.
Yeah.
If anyone can just pick the lock and walk in.
Exactly. Both authentication and authorization have to work in tandem.
Okay.
You need to verify identity
Ah.
and decontrol access to create a truly secure environment.
Okay, so we need both strong locks
Yes,
and a good system for deciding who gets which keys.
I like it.
But as our digital lives get more complex,
Yeah.
with cloud computing and remote work,
Mm-hmm.
how do we even keep track of all those keys and locks?
That's a key challenge.
Yeah.
And it's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
One concept that comes into play
Yeah.
is called just-in-time permissions, or JIT.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Have you?
I think Bert Blevins mentioned it in one of his videos.
You might have, yeah.
So instead of giving someone permanent access,
Uh-huh.
you're essentially giving them a temporary key
Right.
that expires after a specific time or task.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like giving a contractor a key to your house
Yeah.
while they're doing renovations,
Right.
but taking it back once the job is done. JIT significantly reduces the risk
Okay.
of overprivileged accounts.
Yeah.
Accounts that have more access than they need,
Right.
by limiting access
Yeah.
to only what's required at a given moment,
Uh,
you minimize the potential damage if an account is compromised.
that makes a lot of sense.
It's a good idea.
It seems like that principle, granting the least privilege necessary,
Least privilege, yeah.
is a crucial part of any robust security strategy,
Absolutely.
especially in the cloud where data can be accessed from anywhere.
Right, exactly.
And that's where we start bumping into the concept of zero trust.
Zero trust, one of my favorites.
So what's that all about?
Zero trust security assumes that no user or device can be trusted by default.
Right.
Regardless of location or network,
Okay.
every attempt to access resources needs to be verified every single time.
Okay, so even if I'm logged into my work account on my own computer, zero trust means the system won't just assume I'm trustworthy. I still need to prove who I am and what I'm allowed to do.
Every single time. It's like having a security checkpoint at every door, even within the same building.
Okay.
This might sound extreme,
Yeah.
but in today's world,
Yeah.
where cyber attacks are becoming increasingly sophisticated,
Scary world.
it's a necessary approach.
Right.
We can no longer rely on traditional perimeter security,
Okay.
assuming that everyone inside the network is safe.
So zero trust means constantly verifying and re-verifying
It does.
both who you are and what you're allowed to do.
Uh-huh.
It's about being extra cautious
Yeah.
and assuming that there could be a potential threat lurking anywhere.
That's the mindset.
Yeah.
And it heavily relies on strong authentication and authorization mechanisms. We're talking MFA, biometrics, granular access controls like RBAC and ACLs,
Okay.
and dynamic permissions like JIT,
Yeah, sure.
all working together
Yeah.
to create a layered defense.
Wow, it really is a multi-layered approach.
It is.
But with all these different components,
Yeah.
how do organizations even manage and enforce all of this?
That's the question, isn't it?
It seems like there's a lot to keep track of.
There is. It's definitely complex.
Yeah.
And that's where having a clear understanding of the underlying principles of authentication and authorization becomes even more crucial.
Right.
You need to know what each mechanism does
Okay.
and how they can be combined effectively
Yeah.
to meet specific security needs.
Right. Because it's not just about slapping on every security measure you can find.
No, not at all.
It's about choosing the right tools for the job
Right.
and implementing them in a way that actually enhances security without creating unnecessary roadblocks.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another important aspect,
Okay.
the human element of security.
Okay, so we've talked about all these technical solutions,
We have
but we haven't really touched on the people involved.
the people.
How do humans factor into all of this?
Well, as much as we rely on technology, human error is often a major weak point in any security system.
Yeah.
Think about weak passwords,
Oh, yeah.
falling for phishing scams,
Happens all the time.
or accidentally giving away sensitive information.
Right, we've all heard those horror stories
I know.
of data breaches caused by a simple human mistake.
Yep.
So it's not just about having the right technology.
No.
It's also about educating people
Absolutely.
and creating a culture of security awareness.
Security awareness is key.
So what does that look like?
Well, training employees
Okay.
on security best practices, teaching them how to spot phishing attempts,
Right.
and fostering a sense of shared responsibility
Yeah.
for protecting sensitive information.
Okay.
All of that is crucial
Gotcha.
for building a truly resilient security posture.
So it's about empowering people to make smart security decisions
It is.
and giving them the knowledge and tools they need to be part of the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that security isn't just the IT department's job. It's everyone's responsibility.
Everyone's responsibility.
And it all starts with understanding those fundamental concepts,
Right.
authentication and authorization,
Yeah.
that we've been exploring today.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
Strong authentication and authorization are the foundation,
They are.
but they need to be combined with smart policies, user education,
Right.
and a zero trust mindset to create a truly secure environment.
You've summed it up perfectly. We've talked about JIT permissions,
Yeah.
zero trust, the human element,
Uh-huh.
and how all of this plays out in our increasingly complex digital world.
It is a complex world,
It is.
but there's one more piece of the puzzle
Ooh.
we haven't touched on yet.
What's that?
Cloud security.
The cloud. Ah, yes.
Everything seems to be moving to the cloud these days.
You really does.
And I have to admit, I'm still a bit fuzzy on how all of this applies to that environment.
Yeah.
Is it the same basic principles, just in a different setting?
That's a great question, and we'll dive into the nuances of cloud security in just a moment.
Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle
Get it.
the final frontier, cloud security.
The cloud.
Yeah, it feels like everything's moving to the cloud these days.
It really does.
Our files, our apps,
Everything.
even our infrastructure.
Yeah.
But how does all this talk about authentication and authorization apply when we're talking about this nebulous cloud?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's where things get extra tricky.
Okay.
The cloud introduces a whole new level of complexity.
Right.
Because we're no longer dealing with a traditional contained network.
Right.
Instead, our data and applications are spread across multiple servers, often managed by third-party providers.
Right. It's not like I can just walk into a server room and see where my files are physically stored anymore.
Not anymore.
So how do we ensure that only the right people have access to sensitive information in this kind of environment?
Well, the good news is that the core principles of authentication and authorization still apply.
Okay.
We still need to verify who someone is and what they're allowed to do.
Gotcha.
But the methods and tools we use need to adapt to this new cloud-based reality.
So it's like we're taking those same security concepts, those strong locks, and careful key distribution. And applying them to a much larger, more distributed building. One that's constantly expanding and changing.
Exactly. And that's where things like cloud identity and access management or IAM come into play. Cloud providers like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud all have their own IAM solutions, which are essentially comprehensive platforms for managing identities and permissions in the cloud.
Okay, so it's like having a specialized security system.
Yeah, think of it that way.
Designed specifically for the cloud.
Exactly.
What are some of the key features?
Oh, there are a lot
of these cloud IAM solutions.
Well, one of the most important is the ability to centrally manage identities.
Okay.
Think about it. In a large organization, you might have thousands of employees, contractors, and even automated systems that need access to different cloud resources.
Oh, wow.
Cloud IAM allows you to create and manage all those identities from a single platform, making it much easier to keep track of who has access to what. Right,
because trying to manage all of that manually across multiple cloud services sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It definitely would be. And cloud IAM solutions go beyond just identity management. They also provide tools for defining fine-grained access control policies. Just like we talked about with RBAC and ACLs earlier.
Right.
You can create policies that specify who can access specific cloud resources, what actions they can perform, and even what conditions need to be met for access to be granted.
So even though the environment is different, we're still using those same concepts. Of roles, permissions, and policies to control access.
Fundamentals. Yeah, it's just that we're doing it at a much larger scale. And with more sophisticated tools.
And remember how we talked about the importance of JIT permissions?
JIT,
Well, that concept is even more relevant in the cloud.
Absolutely.
Where resources are often provisioned and deprovisioned dynamically.
All the time.
Because in the cloud, things can change so quickly.
You never know.
You might need access to a particular server for a few hours to run a specific task, and then not need it again for when.
Exactly. So instead of granting permanent access, cloud IAM solutions allow you to grant temporary time-limited access.
Just like with JIT.
Just like JIT. This minimizes the window of opportunity for attackers and reduces the overall risk.
So it's all about being as granular and dynamic as possible. With those permissions, making sure that people only have access to what they need when they need it.
You got it.
And let's not forget about zero trust.
Zero trust.
That principle is absolutely critical in the cloud.
It really is.
Where we can't assume that anything is inherently secure.
Nope.
Just because it's within our cloud environment.
Not at all.
We need to verify every access request.
Every single one.
Regardless of the source.
Doesn't matter where it comes from.
So even if I'm logged into my work account
Yep.
and accessing a cloud service that's officially part of my organization's infrastructure. Zero trust means the system will still treat me with a healthy dose of suspicion.
Always verifying. It'll want to double check that I'm really who I say I am.
Yeah.
And that I'm authorized to access that specific resource.
Exactly.
Zero trust is about removing implicit trust.
Okay.
And continuously verifying everything.
Gotcha.
Regardless of location or user.
Okay.
And that's especially important in the cloud.
Yeah.
Where the attack surface is so much larger and more dynamic.
Okay, so we're taking those core concepts of authentication and authorization, layering on cloud-specific tools like IAM, incorporating principles like JIT and Zero Trust.
Absolutely.
And really creating a comprehensive security framework.
That's it.
For this new world of cloud computing.
You got it.
You've got it.
And one more thing I want to emphasize is that cloud security is a shared responsibility.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
While cloud providers like AWS or Azure are responsible for securing the underlying infrastructure, the organizations using those services are responsible for securing their own data and applications within that environment.
Right, it's like renting an apartment.
Exactly.
The landlord takes care of the building's security, but I'm responsible for locking my own door and keeping my belongings safe inside.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So as organizations move more and more of their operations to the cloud, they need to understand their own security responsibilities and work closely with their cloud providers to ensure that everything is properly secured.
It seems like there's a lot to consider.
There is.
But it sounds like we have the tools and knowledge
we do
to navigate this new landscape.
We've got this.
Yeah, it's all about applying those core principles of authentication and authorization in this new context. And adapting our security strategies to this ever-evolving world of technology.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
You've hit the nail on the head.
This deep dive has been a journey.
It really has.
Through the fascinating world of authentication and authorization.
It's been fascinating.
From the basic concepts to the complexities of cloud security.
Yeah, and the key takeaway is...
What's that?
That this isn't just about technical jargon.
No.
It's about protecting our data, our privacy, and our digital lives.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
We've demystified those acronyms, explored the different methods and mechanisms, and looked at how all of this plays out in the real world, both on premises and in the cloud.
Yeah, I feel much more equipped to think critically about these issues.
Good.
And make informed decisions about my own digital security.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Empowering you with the knowledge and understanding to navigate this increasingly complex digital world.
It is increasingly complex.
So stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of authentication and authorization.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Yes.
Keep learning.
Absolutely.
And stay secure.
Stay secure.